We've just a week to go now before we're live on stage with the new show, Cocaine Cowboys. Final tickets on sale from mcd.ie, our venues. So the first thing I think is notable in this story, obviously it's the story is incredible, but is why did the Salazars come to Kilorglan in the first place? So Morris O'Shea Salazar is 10 nearly, isn't he, when they moved from Mexico?
Yeah, he would have been 15.
Oh, he was 15 when he came.
Yeah,
okay. And the story obviously was that his father was Irish and from Kilorglan, that he'd had some accident in Mexico where he met his wife and that he'd moved the family back. But is there evidence of the father's existence or, it's a bit mysterious, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's interesting because one local councillor thinks he comes from a place called Dukes, which is a golfing hotspot down there in Kerry. But then
thinks the father came from.
Yeah. So I'm going to maybe get down to Dukes.
Yeah. If anybody knows, obviously. So the father was O'Shea.
Yeah.
And what was his first name?
He apparently was abroad. We don't know. I don't know. I've tried to find him, but there's a lot of O'Sheas and people aren't too happy.
Yeah.
This is kind of a touchy subject, obviously. But he seems to have existed because a few people have said he went abroad to Mexico. Or he was in Mexico, certainly at one point.
So he was certainly there at least 15 years, if Morris, his son, and there was a sister as well.
Yeah.
So he was gone out of the area maybe 20 years. Okay?
Yeah.
It is just intriguing, that part of it, that it isn't totally clear who he is, where he's from, and why the family come back to Kilorglan. A Mexican mum and her 2 Mexican children moving into the Irish schooling system. A new language, some would say Kilorglan has a third language that, it's difficult to kind of understand the English, etc. But nonetheless, they lived there for about 10 years.
Yeah, they left 7 years ago now.
So Morris O'Shea goes into the local school.
Yeah.
And
seems to have been a little bit disruptive. Seems to have been in a few disagreements. But everybody I spoke to down there spoke in a way that they didn't want to say anything bad about him. I think maybe that just shows they're really good people down there,
The Sinaloa Cartel is pretty scary. So, in a way, somebody coming rattling up asking you to make comments about somebody who's running the European operation of it is, people maybe understandably don't want to say anything bad. But what we do know from the little bits that we've been able to garner is that at one point he's before the courts and his defence suggests that he has a personality disorder.
Yeah.
Which is to do with his behavioural issues.
Mm-hmm. Apparently he was very softly spoken and he cooperated quite well with the system.
And what had he done?
It was a firearm charge is what it was, but it's probably not a gun, is it? It's a knife probably, and is there an assault and a couple of public order offences as well? And he did serve a month in prison, isn't it?
Yeah, he was getting involved in fights and stuff like this, but one of the councillors said that he had nicknamed the Mexican because of a link with drugs. So he was building a reputation at that point.
But you're talking small scale. I mean, this is really, really small scale stuff. But there's no doubt that Morris O'Shea Salazar...
He's a hothead.
He's a hothead. But his name is Morris O'Shea Salazar. There's no doubt that his family connections give him an entry into the Sinaloa Cartel. Salazar is the name of El Chapo Guzman's first wife. And the Salazars from Kilorglan are related to the Salazars of Sinaloa.
So his mother's first name?
Is Yolanda. Is his mother's name.
Okay. So Yolanda is a woman with 2 teenage kids when she arrives in Kilorglan. And do people remember her? Does she settle in easily or...
She used to walk her dog along the main road. She was known for that. But she worked, she held down a number of jobs.
Right.
And she was quiet apparently, and people had no reason to question the story. And the community helped her so well. She was provided with accommodation. They helped her get jobs. They got her kids into the school. Everybody helped this woman out.
Right.
That's why I can feel the sadness of people now.
She was working.
Yeah.
So they're pretty settled.
They're pretty settled. But I suppose simultaneously you see the rise of the Chapitos in Sinaloa after El Chapo was extradited to the US. Probably
now you're talking about the most recent extradition that resulted in, because El Chapo, of course, is in and out of prison, and he makes this very brave escape. At one point, there's a tunnel dug under the prison, etc. So you're talking about.
But at this point, he's still definitely controlling the Sinaloa Cartel from root and branch. But following his extradition to the US, I think that does stop. I mean, he's in a supermax prison. He's under constant supervision. There's no... What was going on in Mexico is not going on in the US. And once he's extradited, his sons really rise to the top, known as the Chapitos. And they are, of course, Salazars as well. And it seems simultaneously those family connections lead to our Kilorglan Salazars to become... basically to become in charge of the European operation, really, of that cartel.
Yeah, look, it looks like El Chapo is this guy Morris O'Shea's uncle through marriage.
So it was 2017 when El Chapo Guzman was extradited to the US. So it is around this time that Morris, shall we call him?
Yeah, Morris, which is
leaves these shores for Barcelona.
Yeah. Is it a kind of a grey period about when he got involved? I'm not too sure at what point, but by the time these EncroChats were released or uncovered, he was at that point living in a 5th floor luxury apartment in Barcelona. So it seems like this is a snapshot of an ongoing operation. It's not just something that...
An EncroChat was in April of 2020. It was the mass hacking of the criminals' communication network of choice. I think the EncroChat hack started at the beginning of April and concluded at some stage in late June, when the company itself sent an SOS to all its users to get rid of your handsets, that we've been compromised. And obviously myself and Niall have talked regularly about the fallout from that, the kind of groupings that were, brought before the courts in the aftermath, and some of the cases that were linked to them. But this was obviously a longer form of a surveillance operation that was put in place against Morris O'Shea Salazar, now based in Barcelona in 2020. We think he's moved out of Kerry some point between 2015 and 17. So what is the operation? What is the police operation?
To be, so what happens is the DEA tip off the authorities that Morris O'Shea Salazar is somebody to look into.
And this is in advance of the EncroChat hack?
This is in advance of the EncroChat hack, it seems.
The DEA realise he's based himself in Barcelona. They know the connections with
Yes, because there's also a simultaneous operation in Chile where they have a guy there, I think it says it in 2019, and he's purchasing coke from Bolivia, getting it to Chile, and then it's being sent back to Europe. This is all being directed by Morris O'Shea Salazar from Barcelona. Something goes wrong in 2019. The guy gets sick, I think it says, and Morris O'Shea sends his mother and his uncle over to take over the operation in Chile. In Chile, they're moving it from Bolivia, probably buying it directly from source through the Sinaloa Connections, but then they're in charge of everything from that point on. And they've chosen Chile as a base to distribute it then to Europe. The EncroChat hack really shows, and this was used.
There's obviously some surveillance on around them before the EncroChat hack gets underway, but the EncroChat gives them a kind of a proper window into what's happening. Now, the mother, had she remained in Kilorglan until this point that his connection
Well, I think there's a couple of years grey area, is there? But like she's sent over there. Is it in 2019, I think?
Yeah, that's when she first comes onto the radar, I think. Yeah.
And do they remember her living just under the radar completely in Kilorglan up until that point?
Yeah. Very well spoken of, and the people down there said they could never have suspected anything like this. Totally shocked at what you're telling them.
Could have.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I suppose it's important to look at the scale. So within the Morris O'Shea's mother and his uncle Ricardo are ultimately convicted in Chile of drug trafficking offences. But what they're convicted of is effectively organising for 6 tons of cocaine to be moved from Chile to Europe. So if you look at the MV Matthew, you're talking
2 ton.
2 tons. So this is 3 times the amount of that absolutely record seizure in Ireland. So you're a huge scale.
And that's been shipped over how, what period of time?
Over the period of time, we have a list of boats here, like the MSC Matu, MSC Chloe, MSC Aino, Bianca, Elma, and they're coming into Antwerp, Amsterdam, Munich, Eindhoven, Bilbao, Malaga, Liverpool, Valencia. And that's just in a period of that EncroChat. So that's like
3 months.
Well, no, because it would have been the start of end of 2019 up until start of 2022 when there was an attempt for the cops to infiltrate the whole thing, and that's when it came to an end. So it's 13 months in total.
Okay, so this is the wider investigation, not just the EncroChat.
Yeah.
So the EncroChat shows how they did it.
EncroChat is it's more of a targeted EncroChat hack, because while they're listening to this chitter chatter happening all over Europe and they're discovering things, they've probably realised that O'Shea Salazar has an Encro phone, and they've gone straight in to listen to what's going on in order to form a picture of how they're actually shipping this stuff.
Yeah.
And before we go on, over a period of 13 months, we're looking at 6 tons being shipped across the Atlantic. So you're talking about 600 million euro. That's a figure that, look, is some people will say is wild. But the fact of the matter is that, 2 tons of MV Matthew is valued at what, 200 million?
It's valued at
very simple sum.
Even slightly more. So, I mean, how do you work out this final?
And obviously, this is what it would sell for if every grain of it went onto the market on the streets, because obviously, it's growing in value all the way along.
It's interesting to note that they were paying 590 grand for each container, and that money was going straight back to Chapito. That's in the EncroChat.
So, I mean, how Neill, can you explain how they were doing it? So they get the coke into Chile. How did they then get it to Europe? What is the strategy?
Yeah, well, from what I've garnered, from the images, you can see that it gets put onto the containers, gets shipped over. They have people in each port. They have freight forwarders. They have people in the ports, they have freight forwarders, and then they send images of codes and key locks and stuff from each container to the people in the port where it's arriving, so that they don't go wrong when they're taking. So they have people in the system everywhere.
So they're using these green channels from Chile, which is basically for trusted traders, I suppose, with perishable goods. So as you see, a lot of the drug smuggling from South America comes in things like bananas and things like that, because they have to go through, right? They can't hold them there forever. They go out of date.
Exactly.
So they have a thing called, is it the green channel?
Yeah.
And these are kind of trusted exporters who may very, very rarely, if ever, get searched. And so he uses, doesn't he, Nestle at one point. Now, this is obviously Nestle have no awareness of this, and but in products they're exporting, the coke is hidden amongst it.
Yeah.
So they have somebody in the port who's maybe, taking control of the likes of Nestle's products as they're ready for export, and they're then slipping in the cocaine into that trusted channel.
Yeah.
It's kind of gaining entry into Europe without any red flags.
Yes, and then they have a man in different ports. I mean, how many ports are they talking about?
As I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the EncroChat listed there.
Yeah.
Pure 180.
Rotterdam, Antwerp.
Antwerp, Amsterdam, Munich, Eindhoven, Bilbao, Malaga, Liverpool, Valencia, and then Dublin as well.
All huge ports with a huge amount of product coming through them. I think Rotterdam is the biggest in Europe.
And a new
Antwerp.
And a new port opened in Valencia, and the Spanish police were really shocked to hear them say, literally, we own that new port.
Right.
So you can see how they do it as well. The guys collect it, and then they take a picture.
Yeah.
Here it is with the codes or whatever, as you were explaining. That gets sent back to prove that it's landed. And that follows through then, doesn't it, for the truck drivers as well? Mm. Some of them which are Irish, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah. We have 3 truck drivers who are definitely Irish. I have their EncroChat names. They're called L Betty, BB, and Ironic Sugar. Mm-hmm. Were their EncroChat names. And then they had other Irish people, a guy who was using the EncroChat nickname of Cucullen. And then you have another guy called Dior6, another guy called Pure Love, another guy called Notorious Cleaner, and Melito. Some were Spanish, some were Italian.
And this information you're getting out of EncroChat files. Mm. So this evidence will be used in cases perhaps are...
Well, it has been used.
It's been shared.
It's been used in Chile.
It has been used in Chile.
So this is and
it's the source of a lot of this information that we're talking about in this crime special.
Because they have convicted Morris O'Shea's mother and his uncle. They got very lengthy prison sentences.
I think 23 years in total.
Yeah, between the two of them, 13 and 12 years, is it?
Yeah, but 8 on top then as well.
Yeah,
so I think.
So as part of that court proceedings, they introduced these. Basically, a surveillance operation by the Spanish police, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that is used then to convict them, along with the EncroChat information, along with the movements of the cocaine within the country.
So they're bringing it in through these ports, right? And Liverpool obviously is closest to us. We then are seeing evidence of it coming on through to Dublin in haulage. So truck drivers are bringing it through to Dublin.
Boats are coming into Dublin, but then they're also going into those various ports, and then they're in some cases being driven across land into Dublin.
So there's various ways.
Yeah, they're getting 15 grand per trip.
Is there evidence on those EncroChat files that you have seen that would show any cocaine arriving in Dublin around the time of the EncroChat hack?
Well, we have
3 specific
April
dates,
and June. So Encro are the police basically listening in,
May and June,
are tracking this shipment into Dublin. Okay, is there evidence that shipment, that container, is seized by Revenue or by Gardaí, or do the Gardaí appear to act on this? Is there any backup to show that we didn't allow Sinaloa cocaine enter the country when we would have known because we were part of the EncroChat network? A valid question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they came in before. I don't know, but maybe they came in.
Is there any sort of seizures that tally with those dates that we can see that were maybe not explicitly said to be intelligence-led operations, or maybe they were? But I mean, what sort of amounts are you talking there?
590 grand's worth of bulk price. I don't know how much they fit into one container.
Well, look, I mean, those seizures aren't made at Dublin Port anyway. If they are made elsewhere in the country, it's hard to say. But the evidence is there, not probably of the Sinaloa Cartel tracking these container ships that land in Dublin. I mean, that is what we have. What was in them, or what we, you can presume what's in them, but you can't. That's all we know, really, isn't it? I mean, but we know that is what the intelligence documents say, that the cocaine was moved and landed on these dates on these ships, and that they were tracking it the whole way.
Well, we know that there's an Irish crew, this Irish Sinaloa branch, and they're still, I don't think these people are arrested.
No. Then you have another Kerry man heavily involved in it, using the EncroChat handle Korgland, and he can be seen travelling to Barcelona. There's lots about his Spanish travel, and he's an integral part of the whole operation.
Now, we do understand, obviously, that there's a larger investigation going on, both in this country and other countries, in relation to the kind of the information that has been gathered through EncroChat and through this network. But Kilorglan itself, back to the spot where it all sort of began. Mm-hmm. Are we seeing any links, any reason that the Sinaloa may have sent a cell grouping, weird though it may be, a mother and her 2 teenagers, or certainly one teenage son?
Well, I mean, is that what we believe? I mean,
I don't know.
I think it's more like...
I think it's weirder that she'd come from Mexico.
People come...
That's what sorry for interrupting. That's what one person who was involved in his education said. She looked at me and she goes, was he planted here for this?
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds
well,
more
that
like
person has obviously got a cynical mind like mine.
No, I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing.
Well, I'd be more people drifting into it, and somebody says, oh, your aunt, she's got this opportunity and you have this European passport, and all of a sudden you can make... I mean, I think they they were going to be set up in life after a few of these shipments.
Right.
You wasn't, they were going to be set up.
They were going to make and maybe buy a big pad in Korgland.
Exactly.
I think O'Shea, Morris, as we're calling him, I think he is set up for life with the amount of money he probably made already. And judging by the interactions between Ivan Archibald El Chapito and the other guy, Ismael Zambada Garcia El Mayo, who run
he
the
was El Chapo's partner.
Yeah, it looks like there's a kind of almost a standoff between them and the government. So they're so powerful. That's what I've realised, how powerful they are. So I'm not sure if we'll ever see.
No, because he's wanted. Like he's there. An extradition warrant has been issued for him in Chile.
So he is currently hiding out somewhere in Mexico.
Yeah,
he's left Spain. He's no longer in Barcelona.
Yeah, so we believe.
Yeah, and he's no longer in Kilorglan, as far as we know. He's not hiding. Are you sure he's
actually working in Super Value?
Yeah, you never know. You see, if anybody sees him, just give us a ring. But he could be anywhere.
These guys.
But the belief of the Chileans is that he's in Mexico, and they're looking for him to be extradited from Mexico.
Yes,
and just like. One thing I thought was interesting is like these guys took on the Mexican government in a helicopter gun battle in 2013, like on a beach resort.
Yeah.
You know, and when they tried to arrest one of the other Chapitos in 2019, all the Sinaloans came down. You might remember it, and they started burning roadblocks and, you know, started threatening the military's families. So it was okay, we're not going to do that.
Over to
and in 2022, then. They went to arrest them again, and the military were just leaked emails were just like, no, we're not going to actually do this.
Yeah.
So
that's they're extremely powerful. It's a narco state. But like an extraordinary story, and amazing to see that amount of drugs being moved under the radar. I mean, we've spoken here before about Morris O'Shea, but only in recent times when he's popped up on the radar because of your fantastic Google search for Irishman or whatever it is.
I think the really surprising thing is that the absolutely embedded links to Ireland that remained. I mean, I think when we first came across it as a story, it was like somebody who put his Irish past away from him.
Yeah.
But really, there's, Irish people are an integral part of this guy's operation. I mean, that is a fact.
I asked one of his mates, did he play GA? Because I was hoping I'd find pictures of him playing as a cornerback or whatever. And he said, this lad wouldn't know football if it came up and hit him in the face.
Well, he knows cocaine.
it was cocaine.
But another interesting thing I thought was interesting was they were bringing 50 kilograms of coke in the hold and on their person on KLM, Iberia and Air France flights for testers. So they were bringing them over to
test the purity or whatever.
And some people wanted to buy it or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a number of different flights listed there between Barcelona and Germany and various, again, unknown to
And are these underlings, minnows? These aren't...
No, one of the main guys who, I'm not sure if we can name him or whatever, but he's a Scouser.
Right.
He was doing those trips.
Okay. So extraordinary.
Very Irish name.
I mean, it's a lot of drugs.
Yeah, it's a lot of drugs.
It's a lot of drugs. I'm going to Google like mad here to see if I can see any seizures in Dublin or around the country at the times to tally with your dates, because I'd really like to think that, given that we would have had the same information that the Spanish were getting from EncroChat, that it wasn't a case that these drugs were allowed through into the country.
Mm. Well, we don't know. It's a mystery what was told, or was it told in the aftermath?
Let's get Googling. Let's have a look and see if we can find out, because, and if we can't, we'll come back to it. I mean, we could also put in some queries in relation to this, specifically to the Garda Press Office. I mean, we are looking at files where you have the dates, the names of the boat, and the value of the shipment that is dropping. You know what time and it dropped basically in Dublin Port.
3:20. Yeah.
Right. I'm back on
your
Encromania.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, look, fantastic story, and we'll hear more of it. It's obviously all on thesundayworld.com. You're explaining the background to Morris O'Shea Salazar, the intricacies of that operation, and the hunt for him, the ongoing investigation into him. But you've also spoken to locals in Kilorglan and their memories of him. No doubt you'll be doing more on that story anyway, more digging in the coming weeks. Niall, get Googling.
Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.